It is a harrowing story making international headlines, and you heard it first right here on NBC 10 Boston. 4 American tourists are potentially facing up to 12 years in prison on the islands of Turks and Caicos. Consumer investigative reporter Leslie Gatiss broke that story, and she spoke with the mother of one of the Americans who says officials refused to check on her son while he sat in prison.
When American Michael Grimm was sentenced to 8 months in prison in the Turks and Caicos Islands last year for possession of ammunition, his mother relied on the U.S. Embassy in the Bahamas for help. But she says she had trouble getting even basic information from the staff.
My expectation was they could have compassion and kindness, and that just seemed to be lacking. We were told, our policy is that you have to abide by another country's law. There cannot be given any special treatment. And I felt like I continually said, we're not asking for special treatment. We're asking to understand. What are the rules of the prison? What are the visitation policies? Are we going to be able to communicate with our son?
Fowl says Michael was the first American incarcerated at HMP prison on Grand Turk Island. Last March, TCI Media reported the island's Human Rights Commission found the prison was not fit for human habitation and was in breach of international human rights standards due to overcrowding, poor sanitation, and sewage issues. Fowl says despite that, no one from the U.S. Embassy visited Michael while he was held there. She says officials told her his sentence was too short to warrant a visit.
So I was extremely fearful and worried about his safety. I was very concerned about his health. Felt like there was no one. I was going to have to do it along with our family just to keep tabs on what was going on. The only link we had to Michael was the attorney.
Frustrated, Fowl says she included the head of the embassy, Usha Pitts, on a November email to staff asking about Michael's condition. Pitts responded 23 minutes later telling her, please remove me from your emails. I do not involve myself in ongoing health and welfare cases, nor will I provide you with details of my interactions with the governor, which are not driven solely by Michael's case. She asked that Fowl restrict her communications to the team in charge of American citizens.
I felt very angry. I felt very defeated that the U.S. Embassy was not going to keep my son at the forefront of their conversations with the government.
We asked Pitts and the State Department about that email. A State Department spokesperson tells us, we apologize to the Grimm family for the tone and substance of the emails. They were not in accordance with the high priority we place on care for Americans abroad. The agency says its embassies and consulates abroad have no higher priority than the safety and security of U.S. citizens overseas, and that they make every effort to share information with families in as timely a manner as possible. And say whenever a U.S. citizen is detained abroad, they seek immediate access to visit the individual. Former U.S. Senator Scott Brown, who served as the U.S. ambassador to New Zealand and Samoa, says he would have handled it differently.
We would have dispatched a team certainly to make sure that they were getting proper representation, making sure that that citizen was safe in that country, in that circumstance. And if they're not doing their jobs and they're not communicating, then respectfully, I think they're failing at the number one job, which is to take care of U.S. citizens and their families and make sure that it's an open and continuous line of communication.
Fowl says she hopes the embassy does better if the other detained Americans are imprisoned.
There needs to be more assistance to their safety, their mental health, and their physical health, and just their general well-being. So even if it's a short sentence, there needs to be a visit.
Brian Hagerich will be in court in Turks and Caicos Islands tomorrow morning. He's the Pennsylvania man charged with possession of ammunition in February. He says it was in his bag from a previous hunting trip. His lawyer will present his case and a judge will deliver a sentence, which could be anything from time served up to 12 years in prison. Leslie Gatiss, NBC 10 Boston.